Welcome everybody to our BNI Talks webinar. My name is Steve Tenuzo, your host, and today I've got returning presenter Kathleen DelPrete, and we're talking about marketing to different generations. And this is something that, being in a marketing role that I have, is something that's it comes up a lot more often than it had been, because I think there's such a difference in the way the generations act and the way that they react to taking in all sorts of media. So I'm going to turn it over to Kathleen and let's get this conversation started.
Well, thank you so much, Steve. It's great to be back. And I have to say, this is one of those topics. I went back to school later in life for a graduate program, and I took a course called Genders and Generations in the Workplace. And it's one of those courses that literally just set my hair on fire. I was so excited because everything that we were discussing in class, I was literally picking up and bringing back to the workplace, helping me talk to, my boomer superiors, talking to some of my, millennial coworkers, or even, subordinates, et cetera. So it was really helping me understand how to interact with different people. The other issue was I was in the marketing role, and I was trying to attract people who were my age at the time, which is the Generation X. And I really had to understand, how were they behaving in the marketplace? How were they also working to, do their due diligence when they're making buying decisions? And how were we interacting with them using different media types? So with that, I developed a program that kind of talks about how different generations react and work with media in the marketplace. So today we're going to talk about several different things. Our objectives are going to be understanding the different generations of consumers out there, because there's actually a span of 6 different ones, differences on how they interact with the different media types, and strategies to target each audience, building your own avatar, what I call your ideal customer, and what the different vertices or different media types that you should be using. All right. So with that, who are the different generations in the marketplace? And we've thrown around these different names. We've talked about specific US generations, and they are the silent generation. I always equate these people with my in-laws, who are 88 right now. There's the boomer generation that I think we're all familiar with. That would include my mom, who is born in 1947. She is a very atypical boomer. Mm-hmm. There's Gen X, which Steve and I ascribe to.
I just barely made it. All my siblings are boomers, because I'm 1966. I'm like, whoosh.
Now, you say that, you actually bring up an interesting topic, because a lot of people who are in behavioral sciences, if you are close to being, between the 2 different age groups for a particular generation, you may display some characteristics of both. So kind of like that gap.
Right. Just don't okay boomer me and we'll be fine.
I promise. Then we also have the millennials, which a lot of people are like, well, why are they called millennials? Because they were born before 2000. Is because they were entering the workforce after the new millennium. Right. Nickname also Gen Y. Then we have Gen Zs. Now, these are my kids. So all of my kids fall into that Gen Z category. And then we have the newest termed Alpha generation. And these children, if you see, this goes through 2025, they're still being born. So, and again, all of these ranges, they're not necessarily consistent in terms of the different ranges. What they are associated with is different kinds of shared generational experiences. So the silent generation, as we know, they may not only have lived through the Depression, but they may have also fought in World War II, some of the older ones. The boomers, for example, were all born post-World War II. So after peace happened in 1945, a great baby boom happened, hence the name. So you'll see they're not consistent in terms of the number of years, but again, shared experiences. This applies to US generations because what happened in the United States, again, doesn't necessarily happen in Europe, et cetera. So those are the people and groups that we're specifically talking about today. All right. So after that, we also know that each of the different generations have accumulated different amount of wealth. And I really don't have to tell a lot of people that, what the distributions are like. So right now, the silent generation is probably one of the smallest. The baby boomer was one of the largest, and Gen X is actually the smallest. What's very interesting is that the millennials as well as Gen Z tends to be even larger than the baby boomers right now. So Gen X is the smallest. And the millennials actually have a lot in terms of characteristics and traits in common with the boomers that happened prior to this. A lot of them tend to be very civic minded, a lot of social activism. There's also a lot of information coming out about Gen Z, who are also very engaged on almost a global level. So again, very large populations of people that you might want to target. There's also generational wealth. So again, we don't have to kind of guess who has accumulated the most wealth in the United States right now. It is the boomers, clearly. The silent generation, that's been tapering off, obviously, as the population tapers off. While Gen X has kind of swooped up a little bit there, it's still a large population or a large percentage of the wealth resides within the baby boomers. So again, if you're building your avatar and you're trying to think of, okay, what age ranges should I target, and who has the money? Boomers are always a safe, I guess you would say, demographic to target. Now, millennials, obviously, they've just entered the workforce. They've been working for, maybe upwards of 20 years. The elder millennials in this group are now in their 40s. Perhaps they're in the midst of their careers. But again, they're vastly different in terms of their wealth accumulation versus baby boomers in generations prior. So the millennials, again, they're still accumulating wealth. They're also one of the smaller segments to own homes based on their generation. So again, if you're looking for specific things, and we'll talk about examples, if you're looking for homeowners, chances are you'll be targeting baby boomers and Gen Xers before you prioritize millennials. Okay, more on that later. So the other thing I wanted to cover is what types of marketing medias are out there. We're all very familiar with some of the traditional, tried and true traditional marketing. So obviously there's print. And when I'm talking about that, there's, there used to be newspaper ads, perhaps you'd get stuff, billboards out there. There's also network marketing, which we've all made the decision to be a part of by being in BNI. There's television. But you think about how television has evolved over time. Television has become much more fragmented than when Steve and I remember, there was like 4 channels on TV growing up, and that was about it. There's also radio, which before you had just a choice of FM and AM. Now you have a choice of satellite radio. So again, a market that's become very fragmented. You also have telemarketing, which a lot of people forget about, but back in the day, telemarketing was very, very popular. And then obviously you've got the US mail. So you get those postcards, you get those flyers, you get all kinds of things in the mail. That still can be very effective depending on who you're targeting. Now you have to kind of think about some of the new methods that people have been using. Digital, and I put this under a big umbrella. Digital is really kind of the power that we've harnessed over the past 20 years to build our businesses through different kinds of mediums. So obviously websites have been around for a very long time, but their sophistication and what you can do with a website nowadays is phenomenal compared to 20 years ago. Social media has also evolved and expanded. The web person in my group, Gordon Multimedia, he brought up actually a really, really good point the other day after I had discussed how TikTok has now been banned in a couple of states here in the United States. On a state level, he said, social media trends tend to come and go. Your website's forever. So if we're talking about anything that you should have as a cornerstone of your digital marketing plan, while social media may be a part of it, your website will always be there for you. Next, that's become really big is email marketing. Nowadays, I don't think you can do any commerce online or walk into any store without somebody trying to, what's your email? So all of a sudden you become a part of their email marketing. That can be very powerful. And I think how you use it for your business may depend, again, on the different generations that you're trying to interact with. Podcasts. Again, maybe don't think of it as a way of branding or promoting your product, but a lot of companies have started thinking about how can they advance their brand story. Podcasts are a great way of doing that. There's also internet ads, whether it's placement on aggregate websites, such as news websites, or pay-per-click, such as Google Ads. Apps. Apps are also a great way to think about another way of digital marketing. If you have a brick and mortar store that's very popular locally, maybe you want to think about advertising on Waze so that when somebody drives by, oh, you pop up on the Waze map. Again, something that hasn't really been thought of up until probably the past 5-6 years. There's also multi-level marketing, as well as affiliate or influencer marketing. So paying other people or giving product away to other people for them to talk about your great product. So those are all different kinds of new methods that you may want to consider for your business. So after that, we're going to talk about strategy. How do you attract and retain people to your business, your ideal client? So I always try and tell people to look at what are their customer attributes. So you have an ideal client in mind. You know, what are some of the key things that you want to think about? Again, what is their age? So what are those different generations that we talked about that you would like to include? Ethnicity or lifestyle, are those anything that's really important in terms of attracting them? You know, is it gender specific? Are you looking for people in certain professions? Is it location based? So if you have a service area that's well defined within, you know, X number of miles of either where your company's headquartered or who you're going to try and pull into your location, you may want to be very specific when you're defining that. And then obviously there's economic factor. Who can afford your brand? Who can afford your services? So those are things that you want to really start, you know, writing down and get a very clear sense on who your avatar is. Because I think there's nothing worse than, you know, I go to a client and they're like, I'm like, who's your ideal client? They're like, well, everybody with a house. I'm like, whoa, you know, if you're a trade, maybe you want to be really, really specific so that you spend your dollars wisely so that you're not attracting people who maybe can't afford you. So get really specific, put those numbers down, and start coming up with who your ideal client avatar is. So once we've got an idea of who they are, we also want to look at the general characteristics of each of the different generations that we outlined before. So there's a lot of different commonalities, I guess you would say, in terms of media that's out there, but how the generations use them might be different. For example, the silent generation, the boomers, they actually still watch a lot of broadcast TV. Some of them may actually read physical newspapers. Some of them, the old younger boomers, may have digital newspapers online. So they have subscriptions and read them on their Kindle. They are lag social users, meaning social media, they may use Facebook, keep tabs on their grandchildren or some of their, you know, children, et cetera. They're not necessarily adopting the newest and latest one. And that's true of just about any technology. They may come on board. I see, especially with my in-laws and my parents, a lot of resistance to doing things like online banking or paying their bills electronically. So they're, you know, they're a little hesitant to do something like that because it's new, it's different. Now there's Gen X, things like habits like watching TV. We use all forms of TV. So yeah, we've got cable, but maybe we have streaming services. There's still satellite out there, believe it or not. So, you know, they kind of adopt everything. Maybe we read electronic news. We may not necessarily get a physical paper. And we may not subscribe to just one particular newspaper. We're trying to aggregate all the information that we want to cultivate. Larger populations too own homes, such as the boomers as well. And we're technology adapters. So we've actually grown up with technology. So we've watched the growth of personal computers, the introduction of cell phones. We know what life was before that, and we've lived with life after it with all this technology coming in. So we constantly adapt to what's going on, and we just kind of, change, yes, some of the way we work. Steve and I were just talking about some different, programs that we're using to make our work easier, but we're constantly adapting how we work, but we know how to do it without it too. Now, millennials, if you look at those characteristics, yes, they use streaming services as opposed to being locked down traditional cable. They're not very brand loyal when it comes to some of those things like streaming services or news services, et cetera. They may be very brand loyal when it comes to things that they buy. They are very socially conscious, so that's also a factor into purchasing decisions. They also use lots of social media. They have some home ownership, as I mentioned before, and they're technology adopters. So some of these people will be like, yep, I want the latest iPhone. Yep, I'm going to get this. So they adopt a lot right out of the bag. Now, Gen Zers, they actually get their news from social media sources. So they're not necessarily, looking at the Wall Street Journal for their information. They're scrolling through their Snapchat stories and getting news served up that way. They also are very, used to using things like Ride app and public transportation. They are very technology dependent. These kids have never not known a world without certain technology in their hands. So they're very dependent on it. I always joke, I had a fight with my daughter when she was going into middle school, and she's like, I want a cell phone. And I'm like, I don't know. When you get to middle school, we'll talk about it, whatever. And she's like, but Mom, everybody has a cell phone. And I'm like, so we'll wait and see how you're doing, in middle school. She's like, why? How old were you when you first got your cell phone? I'm like, 22. They weren't invented yet, and it just blew her little mind. She had no idea that there was a world without cell phones. No idea. So they really do, they're very technology dependent. I always joke, like, trying to get my mother-in-law across town using Waze, she's going to get lost. Trying to get my daughter across town without Waze, she's going to get lost. So those are kind of examples in the marketplace that you might see. Gen Z also tends to be a legacy rejecter. So Mom uses Facebook. My daughter won't go on Facebook because that's not cool. So you kind of have to think about some of those contradictory tendencies. All right. I think what would really help a lot of people is understanding some of the different case studies based on what type of business you have and how you could leverage the different mediums to reach your ideal client. So our first example would be trades trying to reach homeowners. So Steve knows the BNI group that I belong to, and we have a huge home sphere. And we're always talking about, how to reach the different people within the Metro West area that we live within here in Boston, and who are their ideal clients. And they're really trying to reach generations who own houses. So yes, there's still some silent people or silent generation if they're not already living down in Florida. Some boomers, Gen Xers, and some millennials. The mediums, different ways to market that have a common span is mailers. So if you're trying to reach a homeowner, hitting their mailbox with targeted routes specifically is a great way to reach out to them. Obviously, display brand. So making sure that if you have a physical location, you've got a great sign on your building. If you have vehicles, a fleet of vehicles, driving around with, whether it's painting or electrical or plumbing, et cetera, make sure your vehicles tell your brand story. How do you contact people? Phone number, address. Have a QR code on there that brings them to your website if you have a website. The other big thing is lawn signs. People who work out of the house, maybe the next door neighbor is having their roof replaced. By the time they leave in the morning, the guys aren't there. By the time they come home, the guys are done for the day. Make sure you've got lawn signs out there for the duration of your project, so people know who's doing the work on that particular home. Great way to reach your target audience of the neighbor across the street. The other idea is having a digital footprint. I think one thing people forget about sometimes is having the Google My Business profile out there for your business. Yes, you need a physical location, email address, phone number, as well as, your hours of business. But when somebody does a Google search, the first thing that's going to come up is if you have a Google My Business profile. So if somebody says electricians near me, it's going to pull from, its database. But Google likes its own assets. And if you have a Google My Business profile, it's going to serve that up quickly. The next piece I always talk about is social pages. And I'm actually going to click right here. This is actually an example of a post from I think it's Sudbury Working Moms on Facebook. And that's where a lot of women in my town go to like, give me a plumber, give me an electrician, whatever. And it's really easy for people in my BNI group. We all kind of pile in on all of these Facebook groups to try and give answers. And it's very easy to tag some of the people in my group. In this case, it's Riverfront Landscaping. I put at Riverfront Landscape, and I make sure that they get tagged in the post. A, so it alerts the owner and he gets aware of it. B, it also is a quick way for people to jump to that Facebook page for Riverfront Landscape and make a phone call so that they can hire them if they want to do their due diligence, et cetera. Or jump to their website, because that's probably available on the Riverfront Landscape Facebook page. So it's an easy way for me to put that information in and get it to somebody who could potentially turn into a customer for this landscaper. And he doesn't have to necessarily have a website to do it. So it's an effective way to do that. And Facebook groups have really become important, especially during, post-pandemic, to try and get that word of mouth out. People aren't meeting up as frequently as they used to prior to the pandemic, or if they really need an answer fast and it's, 10 o'clock at night and a pipe bursts and they need, a plumber, you never know who's going to be online, who can give you some recommendations. So having social pages like a Facebook page, great way to do it quickly. The next one is the website. Again, it doesn't have to be a huge fancy website, but at least having a digital footprint, a place that could have blogging. And then you could turn that blog into an email that goes out to all of your current or prospective clients. So you can recycle and reuse information that you're creating, to help with your search engine optimization on your website into a newsletter, into a Facebook post, et cetera. Next one obviously is networking, BNI. It's always a great way to get the word out. And I have to say, our BNI group is really, really great at making sure that we're chiming in whenever possible on social to promote our fellow BNI members. And then also, lastly, is a CRM or a customer management database. Making sure you know who your clients are, who's active, and that you're staying in touch with them is really, really important. Yes, you can do that through email marketing, but just having some sort of reference in terms of, when the last time you were out there. For example, we have a chimney sweep who might be joining our group, and every time he puts in a flue into a chimney, that flue has to be serviced every year to ensure that the manufacturer's warranty for that product he installed is maintained. So he has an automatic alert system set up so 6 months out from that last cleaning, he makes sure he contacts the customer and says, hey, you're due for another cleaning, in order to keep your manufacturer's warranty, when can I schedule it with you? So having that way of kind of staying on top of his clients, an excuse to reach out for them, make an appointment and make sure he's getting that revenue is really, really great. It's one less thing he has to think about, and a CRM system does that for him. All right. So if your company is trying to reach other businesses, so B2Bs, you really want to think about generations who own businesses, and I mean substantial businesses. So boomers, Gen Xers, and some millennials. And mediums that have a common span for these are obviously digital marketing. So your website's going to be a key asset. People are going to do their due diligence about you. So having a really robust website with lots of information is important. Obviously, a Google My Business profile as well. And the social focus should probably stick to LinkedIn. Yes, you can be on Facebook, but I always joke, nobody's looking for, a business attorney on Facebook necessarily. Maybe they're looking for recommendations, but having a LinkedIn profile that's really powerful and again, drives people back to your website is important. Again, having a CRM or email marketing is also very important. So staying in touch with your current customers, as well as a way of gathering information for prospective clients. So, having some sort of email marketing automation. So if somebody does an inquiry on your website, that they're automatically set into a prospect file and get a series of emails from you talking about setting up meetings, coming and visiting the firm, et cetera. And then lastly, it's also BNI networking. A great company that when you think about, B2B, Salesforce, check out their website, whether it's chat, whether it's all kinds of invitations to learn more, whether it's, again, easy navigation to try for free, contact us, et cetera. This is a wonderful example of a company that's doing everything right to invite people in, try what they're doing, and learn more. And lastly, we're going to talk about a retailer. Retailers trying to reach women. And I always talk about really defining your target age range first. So when you think about something like Lululemon, yes, maybe they're trying to reach all different kinds of demographics. But in terms of age ranges, they're really trying to reach that sweet spot of, 40, 30s and early 20s. And you also have to think about if you're online only or if you're brick and mortar. So I'm using a couple of examples or a couple of companies for these examples. The first one is Bravo Baskets, which is online only. And the next one is Pink Hibiscus, which is one of my clients who's going to be opening, hopefully this fall, a brick and mortar store down in Florida. So when we talk about online only, yes, logo and having a great brand look is important. You obviously want to have that Google My Business profile. Having a website with some shopping integrations is going to be really, really important. Is it easy for people to contact you? Can they order things online? Social pages, again, you want to really focus on one or two, and it will really depend on the age that you're trying to target. Obviously Facebook and Instagram will be really important. Instagram, you've got shopping integrations that could actually tie into the back end of your website using Shopify. So thinking about how people are going to be utilizing you online, how are they going to be contacting you? And then obviously having some sort of customer database or email marketing is really important because you want to actually hit a higher frequency. Nobody's driving by your business. So staying top of mind by staying in their inbox is really, really important. One note, boomers, Gen Xers, and to a certain degree, millennials do actually pay attention to their emails. Gen Z, not so much, unless they have to for school or maybe they have to for, a work. Personal emails for them is a lot less important. So maybe you want to think about texting as a strategy if you're targeting a Gen Z demographic, because they'll pay attention to their phones or direct messaging through Instagram, et cetera, versus having to check email. That's not something that they're doing all the time because they're glued to their phone. Now, if we're talking about brick and mortar, again, engaging logo translated to your physical space. So again, you have a consistency between, your website, your social media, as well as your physical location is really, really important. And that helps keep the brand consistency. So people are like, oh, I know I'm in the right place because that's the logo I saw. It's on my bags, et cetera. The Google My Business profile is still important. The website, again, do you have to have a back-end shopping integration? Not necessarily, but something really strong to consider. Again, boomers, as well as, believe it or not, Gen Z, they actually like to physically go into stores and try things versus strictly online. Gen X and millennials, they will buy for certain brands just online. But for some generations, they really like that physical going into the store, trying things on, touching the cloth, et cetera. And that's something that boomers and Gen Z have in common. So keep that in mind. Email marketing, you don't have to do it as frequently. It's, important to stay at least once a month, twice a month. But for certain generations, if you're targeting boomers and Gen X's, please don't spam them every day. They don't like that. Social pages, I always recommend people kind of focus on two. Now, it's easy to do with certain integration using the Meta Business Suite for Facebook as well as Instagram. One post or one video, you can do it between the two platforms very easily. But then seriously think about what's that other social that I'm going to maintain on a regular basis that might require a little extra work, such as TikTok. They really like you posting native videos to TikTok, but migrating that over to Instagram does not like that. And they will actually punish the video if it has TikTok branding on it. It will not get served up to as many people. So keep that in mind. There's going to be effort in maintaining lots of different social media platforms. Do it where your target customer really hangs out. So for boomers, it's going to be Facebook. For Gen X, it might be Facebook, Instagram, a little bit of TikTok. And for Gen Zers, it's going to be Snapchat, TikTok, and a little bit of Instagram. So think about that mix. So as always, today's marketing is going to be a combination of efforts. There's no one silver bullet that kind of cures everything or will take care of everything. You have to reach out to people in different ways because, maybe they haven't checked their social, they're not on it a lot. Email marketing is great, but they never check their personal email. Something in the mail to try and attract somebody with an offer is great, but not if their husband throws it out before they get a chance to look at it when they get home. So kind of like think you always have to try a different combination of things. And the strategy should, you should have a budget. If you do not have a marketing budget, you're doing yourself a disservice, okay? Because if you don't budget for it and plan to spend money on it, you're never going to measure it and see what's working and what's not working. And if you have the budget, but you don't have the time, fine, hire somebody competent who's going to do it for you. Again, I mentioned this before, have clear branding across all the different modes of marketing. It's really, really important that people know they're in the right place because your business here in Massachusetts is different than the business has a very similar name in Iowa. So that branding is going to make sure people know they're in the right place. Take time to track and review what's working. There's nothing worse than, sending a mailer out and getting a 0 response. Like, okay, well, mailers don't work for me. Hang on, was it that you actually needed to send out an email as well as the mailer and then, drive them to the website to maybe get that offer? And, did your website traffic go up? So really take time to review and see what's working as opposed to just dismissing one mode altogether. Again, offload what you're not an expert in. Yeah, you can put email marketing together, but if you don't have the time to do social media posts, hire somebody to do that for you. Consistency will build following. So again, if you're making sure that you're driving people back to your website to get offers or check out new merchandise or book an appointment now, great. As far as social is concerned, maybe you have to spend a little bit of money on, individual ads or something to promote it. Maybe you have to post TikToks, every day to try and start building that following. Something will go viral and then you'll start building a larger following. Trust me, if you spend the time, you will get the return. So consistency is important. And retaining your client is always less expensive than always trying to attract new customers. So delivering on that customer satisfaction, making sure people are, saying, oh yeah, the guy came and replaced our roof. They did a fabulous job. You should hire them. They're going to do the work for you. So making sure that you're delivering quality products is always important. All right. That's what I got, Steve.
Wow, that was a lot of info to take in. But we're talking about a lot of different types of people, right? So I think that's something that we have to look at every time we do some sort of marketing piece. So I really loved when you talked about a customer avatar to come up and to figure out exactly who your customer is and maybe segmenting out your emails with the different kind of wording or images or videos. Depending on who you're working with. I don't know if you've had this a lot in your marketing time in what you do, but do you find that people are the older generations evolving anymore? Like, are they coming into the present, or are some of them just gonna stick it out and hang in there with their newspapers if they can find them and that kind of thing?
Well, it's interesting what you say. So I think there's some pretty consistent things. Like I said, the silent generations, such as my in-laws, I always use them as a funny example. But my mother-in-law still gets the local paper physically, but she'll read the Boston Globe on her Kindle. So
okay, yeah. So
they are adapting certain things.
Yeah.
Especially since she can make the print size bigger so she can see it. So they will if the technology serves them.
Yeah.
And somebody shows them how to do it and sets it up.
Well, yeah, exactly, right. Yeah. Okay.
I joke on their, informal support desk, like, hi, what's wrong today? So they do adopt if it will help. Right. They're not necessarily going to jump on something because it's a trend.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's look at a couple of questions here. Do you accept the Xennial micro generation that are people who are technically Gen Y, but identify more with Gen X because we're the cool ones.
I do. There are micro populations for sure. I would say, my brother who was born in 77 tends to be more like the millennial generation than me, even though we're both Gen Xers, so to speak. Gen Xers were born with a very healthy sense of skepticism. He tends to be more of an optimist, and I'm not quite sure why. But yes, there's definitely, again, that, people who are in between, or even the Zennials, again, who are like my daughter, she's 22. She's definitely bridging both of those age ranges, so to speak. So yes, I think there's a lot of people who kind of fit that microcosm.
Okay. Let's see. Andrew says, if we have two different targets, do you suggest we brand two different websites, two sets of Google business profiles? For example, I do most of my business B2C, but I also have a significant portion targeting business owners and B2B. Wow.
So I don't think that you should have two separate websites or two separate Google My Business profiles. And the reason I say that, and just about every web person in BNI will tell you the same thing. What's important is search engine optimization. Could you have two different landing page on the same website? Absolutely. But I would not have two separate anything. You're not going to build up the search engine optimization if you're driving traffic to two different places, potentially. Because honestly, I always say, I say to my customers, what is somebody Googling at 2:00 in the morning that your website's going to solve for them? What problem are you going to solve for them on their website? So you want to make sure you have one place that they're going to. And yeah, maybe they don't even know how to classify themselves. And you can help with that qualification process with different landing pages to make sure that you're kind of telling the story based on, who you're trying to reach, but it's still the same website. They're not going to get lost.
Yeah, that's interesting. I had a client last year that had two separate landing pages. It was a college prep business, and one was really focused on students, and one was really focused on the parents who were paying for everything.
Exactly. So you just hit on it, Steve. So, some kids might proactively go to their parents and saying, I need help. But a lot of times it's going to, they're not going to pay for it. It's going to be the parents. And you need to appeal to those parents and saying, here's how I'm going to make your life easier. Because ultimately they're going to be paying the bills. So I think you hit the nail on the head. Exactly, Steve. You want to attract the parents because you're trying to solve their problems of their kids.
Right, exactly. Okay, Carlos is asking about text marketing. Where does that fall into all of this?
So, so that is actually something that you can, a lot of companies out there right now, add-on services. There are some CRM products that you can actually do, push campaigns out through your CRM based on your client's information. If you've got their cell phone, and they can opt in or opt out. I would actually say it's another form of digital marketing. It is very popular with larger brands and boutique brands. Although if I get another text message from CVS asking me for, to get my flu shot, I'm just gonna be like, no way. So I think you have to be very judicious in, who you text. And I will say that's a very normal mode of communication for Gen Xers to millennials to Gen Zers. So it's another form of digital marketing. There are separate apps, but a lot of that can be driven through CRM products if they're robust. So again, if you have an ideal client who's a millennial or a Gen Zer, text marketing is a great strategy.
Okay, and then Ken is asking about YouTube.
So that's actually, it's funny. So YouTube has crossed the bridge into what I would call a form of social marketing. So now there are YouTube shorts that are out there that you can post. You can brand them very much like a TikTok or an Instagram reel, et cetera. And it's also a Google property. So if you are putting posts out, if you're putting short videos out there, or even longer videos, talking about your company, your services, and what you can do, if you actually do a really good descriptor as well as good intros and outros, Google will pick up that information in a search. So if somebody types in something that is, well described on your Google video or on your YouTube video, Google will pick that up and serve it up. I think the other interesting thing that I noticed the other day is TikTok is actually coming up in Google searches. So, the coronation was a couple of weeks ago, and I was Googling, I think it was Rose Hanbury, who is supposedly, Prince William's mistress, et cetera. And I Googled her because I wanted to learn more information about her. And then all of a sudden, 3 or 4 TikToks, Rose Hanbury came up in Google search on my phone. I was like, wow, this is fascinating.
And that's
So
newer
it's new.
from Google to open up to that.
Yep. And there were some YouTube shorts in there as well.
Yeah.
So again, if you've got things labeled correctly, the right hashtags, et cetera, those will come into search results too.
Nice. All right. Suzanne says, as far as the workplace is concerned, do you find that one generation has an easier time working with the closest generation to their age, but might have a hard time understanding someone who is 2 generations removed? Does the silent generation have a hard time understanding millennials or Gen Z?
That's a really great question. I'd actually say that the silent generation has certain expectations in terms of how people work and how work is done. So if somebody's perfectly happy at working at home and getting their work done between 5 p.m. and midnight, that is going to be a very foreign concept to either the silent generation or boomers. So making sure that you're setting expectations correctly in the workplace for those different generations are really important. Having said that, I think, I think Gen Xers, millennials, and Gen Zers tend to have the most flexible idea of what work in the workplace looks like. But that's not to say that boomers and silent generation business owners can't be open to understanding what today's modern society really needs to be productive. Physical bodies in stores, we know there's a workplace shortage right now in terms of, finding reliable workers or people to fill certain roles, et cetera. And I think people are getting creative and really trying to be flexible on how they can actually, make it work so that their businesses can stay open and work will get done. But as far as working with the different generations, I will say, did not enjoy having a boomer as a boss for a while. That was not fun.
Yeah, I can see how that could be. All right, that looks like that does it for all of our questions. So before we wrap up, just a couple of quick notes. First, there is no webinar next week because we've got a long holiday weekend ahead of us. And if you would like to see this presentation, I'm going to put the recording up before the weekend happens. So probably in about between 4:30 and 5, you'll see this up on our YouTube channel. You could just Google BNI Team USA YouTube and you'll find it. And Kathleen, any final words before we sign off?
I would just say, if you're not marketing your company, you absolutely should come up with a plan. Work with somebody in the BNI sphere to try and, get your avatar down. Start making some plans and be proactive. It's really what you need to do to make sure your business is a success.
Excellent. Thank you. So yeah, one of the things that, we always say about these webinars is the point of it is for you to have conversations with people in your chapter. We're trying to push business into your chapter by giving you these great ideas. And if there's someone who is in a chapter that does not have someone like Kathleen, you can always reach out to Kathleen. And if you could, Kathleen, put your email into the chat.
Will do.
You can get in touch.